Venezuela celebrates the canonization of Saints Jose Gregorio Hernandez and Mother Carmen Rendiles, the first saints of the South American nation. In Brazil, at least 17 people died and several were injured after a tourist bus accident on a highway in the state of Pernambuco. In Palestine, health authorities registered 27 deaths and 143 injuries in Israeli attacks since October 11, 2025, despite the entry into force of the ceasefire. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin the news. In a ceremony led by Pope Leo XIV at St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City, Mother Carmen Rendiles and Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez were canonized, becoming the first Venezuelan blessed to ascend to sainthood. Thousands of faithful and official delegations celebrated the canonization of 7 new saints of the Catholic Church. In this scenario, Pope Leo XIV highlighted the importance of these figures as living testimonies of faith, charity, and commitment to the most vulnerable. The canonization of Mother Carmen Rendiles and Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez has been the most anticipated event for the Venezuelan Catholic Church in decades.
In honor of the Most Holy Trinity, for the exaltation of the Catholic faith and the growth of Christian life, by the authority of our Lord Jesus Christ, the holy apostles Peter and Paul, and ours, after having reflected at length,
después de haber reflexionado largamente, invocando muchas veces la ayuda divina y oído
often invoking divine aid, and hearing the opinions of numerous brothers in the episcopate, we declare and define as saints the blessed martyrs, Ignatius Malodin, Pedro Torret,
Ignacio Malodin, Pedro Torrot, Vincenza Maria,
Pinches Maria Poloni, Maria Carmen Rendiles Martinez, Maria Troncati, Jose Gregorio Hernandez, Cisneros, and Bartolo Longo.
Gregorio Hernández, Cisneros y Bartolo Longo, y los inscribimos en el catálogo.
And we inscribe them in the catalogue of saints, and we establish that, throughout the Church, they be devoutly honored among the saints, in the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Cardinal Marcelo Semerano, prefect of the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints, honored the life of Saint Jose Gregorio Hernandez, praising his legacy as a symbol of faith and solidarity.
Jose Gregorio Hernandez Cisneros, blessed Jose Gregorio Hernandez Cisneros, was born in Venezuela in 1864. Studied medicine at the University of Caracas, and was sent by the Venezuelan authorities to further his studies in Paris, with the aim of establishing in his native country a number of professorships of which he became the holder. A public medicine practitioner, he conducted specific studies and received numerous awards. However, above all, he became famous as the doctor of the poor, because he treated those who had nothing to pay him for free. In fact, he even bought their medicines for them. Through this form of charity, he fulfilled his aspiration to consecrated life, which was denied him due to his fragile health. He died in a traffic accident while transporting medication to a sick child on June 29, 1919. He was identified by Pope Francis in 2021.
Cardinal Marcelo Semeraro also remembered the life of Mother Carmen Rendiles, honoring her legacy of faith, humanity, and service.
On May 9, 1977, Blessed Maria Carmen Rendiles Martinez, founder and superior general of the religious family of the Servants of Jesus, died in Caracas, Venezuela. She was born in 1903, and at the age of 24, she entered the congregation of the Servants of Jesus Most Holy Sacrament. When the congregation became a secular institute, she and other sisters, in their desire to continue living their religious vocation, they asked to be able to create a new institute that would continue with the same charism of love for the Eucharist and service to priests. The last 3 years of her life were marked by the consequences of a car accident that made it difficult for her to work for the congregation. Pope Francis proclaimed her blessed in 2018.
El Papa Francisco la proclamó beata.
And from Vatican City, a large delegation of Venezuelans and representatives of the Episcopal Conference expressed their fervor and devotion to Saints Dr. José Gregorio Hernández and Mother Carmen Rendiles.
Estos santos representan para nosotros un modelo.
These saints represent for us a model, an example of the Church's journey in consecrated life in its various forms. Dr. José Gregorio Hernández, as a consecrated layman, and my mother Carmen Rendiles, as a religious sister. The Church is rich in charisma. We ourselves are a community of consecrated laymen. I am from Venezuela. I have come for the canonization of José Gregorio Hernández. I've been a devotee for many years. As well as my family, I have come from Genoa to be present representing my country.
In Venezuela, faithful celebrate the historic canonization of Saints José Gregorio Hernández and Mother Carmen Rendiles. Amidst songs and fireworks, the people of Trujillo held a vigil to celebrate the canonization of Dr. José Gregorio Hernández and Mother Carmen Rendiles. This symbolic act connects the universal proclamation with the epicenter of popular devotion in Venezuela, setting a historic moment. It's worth noting that the fervor of this vigil reflected the long journey of faith and the immense popular devotion that preceded the proclamation of the first saints of the South American nation. And as part of the celebration of Saints José Gregorio Hernández and Mother Carmen Rendiles in Isnotu, the faithful and devoted held a procession in honor of the first Venezuelan saints. It should be noted that the holiness of Saint José Gregorio Hernández was officially approved on February 25, 2025 by Pope Francis, who ratified the favorable votes received in the ordinary session of the Cardinal Fathers and Bishops of the Congregation for the Causes of Saints. And the people of Venezuela celebrate with great joy and devotion the canonization of Venezuelans José Gregorio Hernández and Carmen Rendiles. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro attended the national vigil at the José Gregorio Hernández House Museum in Caracas. The event was marked by the faith and enthusiasm of thousands of faithful who waited for the canonization Mass. In this regard, the head of state affirmed that Pope Francis fulfilled his promise of canonization for José Gregorio Hernández, and now the Venezuelan people feel immense gratitude towards the Catholic Church.
Bueno, realmente un día muy emocionante.
It is truly a very exciting day and a day of spiritual joy for all of Venezuela, for all Venezuelans and beyond our borders, because José Gregorio has always reached beyond our borders. He was always a saint here. We are in his home. I wanted to come to his home again.
Siempre fue santo. Aquí estamos en su casa. Quise venir a su casa otra vez. Esto que inauguramos aquí como museo.
This is what we are inaugurating here as a museum, where he lived here in Caracas, and we have also seen people in his notice since yesterday afternoon. They have been keeping watch for more than 12 hours, and it is a day where the power of holiness of the people of Venezuela,
Donde se ha logrado que se reconozca la fuerza de santidad que tiene el pueblo de Venezuela. Primera vez que hay dos santos.
has been recognized for the first time. There are two saints, a man and a woman, a great saint, Mother Carmen Rendiles, and the saint, the doctor of the poor, our Dr. José Gregorio Hernández.
Y muy emocionante. Hemos visto toda la ceremonia, las 10 liturgias.
It is a day of true joy and excitement. We have seen the entire ceremony, the liturgy, Pope Leo's message, and the large delegation of Venezuelans who were there. The beautiful tricolor flag with the 8 stars, and the radiant horse galloping toward peace.
Galopando hacia la paz, siempre victorioso.
Moreover, the Venezuelan president asked the new saints to protect the people of Venezuela.
Y hoy me encomendé a la Santísima Trinidad y le pedí
Today I committed myself to the Holy Trinity, and asked Mother Carmen, Holy Mother Carmen Rendiles, and Dr. Jose Gregorio, to cover our country with a sacred cloak, so that our country may continue to exist,
siga su camino de paz y que curen el corazón de la gente que odia. Que nadie odie aquí.
and cover the hearts of those who hate. No one hates Venezuela from over there, and no one hates Venezuela from within. May no one wish evil upon Venezuela, neither from outside nor from within. May we wish each other well, and on that path we are heading for greatness.
Lo que vamos es pa' grande, oyó.
And in the state of Trujillo, in the Venezuelan Andes, a caravan of hundreds of people celebrated the canonization of Saint Jose Gregorio Hernandez and Saint Carmen Rendiles. The parishioners walked 17 kilometers from the city of Valera to the town of Isnotu to accompany and honor the first saints of Venezuela, Jose Gregorio Hernandez and Carmen Rendiles. The people of Trujillo are proud that a distinguished citizen such as Dr. Jose Gregorio was recognized by the Vatican and received the highest honor for his spiritual commitment. A group of doctors also participated and were pleased and happy to be part of the procession, which they believe represents an opportunity to renew faith and strengthen ties between citizens. We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We return live to Vatican City, where a special envoy, Jorge Stosso, is there for the important event that took place earlier in the morning, the canonization of the first Venezuelan saints, Jose Gregorio Hernandez and Mother Carmen Rendiles.
Well, the historic day here at the Vatican, it's winding down. Most of the people have already left, but there's a clear message that these two saints from Venezuela has made a mark. Definitely, it was a crowd, the largest crowd that we have seen waving flags from Venezuela, being about thousands of them in the ceremony during the morning, and most definitely through what is the encyclical of the new Pope, reflected what is the principles of Jose Gregorio, the doctor of the poor, and also the current Pope. The encyclical is precisely on the poor, as it has been also in the case of the Pope Francis. So there is a message that has been laid out in this historic situation, this historic event, and it's going to go way further than just the day that has been marked. History in Venezuela with two saints, and history here in the Vatican for the first time, two Venezuelan saints. We get back to you now.
Thank you, Gestoso, for the latest details coming from the Vatican City on this historical day for the Venezuelan people. Let's continue now with other news. In Brazil, at least 17 people died and several were injured after a tourist bus accident on the highway between Paranatama and Saloa in the state of Pernambuco. The vehicle was traveling in the wrong direction, and after an initial collision, a sandbag caused it to overturn. The Director General of the Forensic Police, Wagner Becerra, stated that although there is still no report confirming the exact cause of the accident, the relevant analysis of the braking system and other components of the vehicle are being carried out. The authorities are also investigating possible discrepancies in the passenger list and whether there was mechanical failure or human error in the driving. And in Bolivia, a second round of general elections begins to elect the country's new president. More than 7 million Bolivians will go to the polls on Sunday to vote between candidates Rodrigo Paz from the Christian Democratic Party and Jorge Tuto Quiroga from the Free Alliance. From 8 a.m. local time, notaries and jurors were at the polling station to verify that the process was being conducted correctly. Preliminary results are expected to be announced between 8 and 9 p.m. through the results transmission system. And the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador denounced on Saturday the suspension of the Inti Pasha radio signal in what it described as a direct attack on freedom of expression and indigenous communication. The community media outlet was sanctioned by the Communications Regulation and Control Agency with a 15-day suspension of its broadcasts in the context of the protests against the government of Daniel Noboa. The indigenous movement condemned the measure as a punishment for popular and community communication and vowed to continue speaking out. The organization noted that this is part of a pattern, citing the suspensions of Radio Illumin and TV MICC, as well as signal blocking and harassment of community communicators. Palestine health authorities received 29 bodies and treated 21 injured Palestinians in the last 48 hours despite the entry into force of the ceasefire. Gaza health officials reported that the number of Palestinian deaths in the Gaza Strip rose to more than 68,000 and the number of injured exceeds 170,000. They also reported that despite the ceasefire, there have been 27 Palestinian deaths and 143 injuries from Israeli attacks since October 11, 2025. Gaza authorities indicated that 15 additional unidentified bodies were also received from Israel, bringing the total number of bodies returned to 135. Now for our second break coming up, before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, we'll be right back. Welcome back. The Grandma Rebelde International Festival continues on its third and final day in Havana. Let's go with our correspondent Belén de los Santos for all the details.
Hello studios, I greet you here from Havana, Cuba. Once again, this is the third day of the Grandma Rebelde Festival. We've been bringing a little bit of everything that's happening here, the debates on journalism, on a revolutionary journalism, everything that Cuba has learned from its experience and everything that people around the world have also learned. And particularly in this festival that's been a call for participants of over 30 countries to come here, not only to celebrate those 60 years of Granma and Juventud Rebelde, but also to discuss on the present challenges of a very complex geopolitical situation and the role that journalism is playing in that context. And for that, we are now welcoming Brenda Lopez. She is the co-founder of Hands Off Cuba in the US. Hello, Brenda. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you, actually. And you're coming from LA, right? So tell us a little bit what's been like to come be here in Cuba from the experience of everything that's going on over there.
Yeah, so it's always a pleasure to be here in Cuba. Our main thing is every May Day we bring delegations of Cuba to experience what it is. That's the cultures, the people, you know, a little bit of everything. But the biggest thing is for them to experience something outside of what we are used to. In the U.S., as you might know, our medias are very influenced by money and by people in power, and in that regard, there's a lot of stuff that is left out. And one of those things in particular is Cuba, and so that's where our committee comes in and trying to educate the public on not only what Cuba has to offer, but what our government is doing to Cuba with these 246 sanctions and the state list of terrorism. So what better thing than bringing people to Cuba for them to see it themselves, the impact that these sanctions have, and the impact that us not knowing what Cuba has to offer also has on us.
Exactly, and everything that has to do with the movement of solidarity with Cuba from the U.S. itself knows a lot about the narratives that are trying to be imposed in Western media and how hard it is, but how important to build counter narratives and spreading the information from alternative outlets, building our own sources and our own platforms as well. And I assume that in this context, where you have in the U.S. an even more aggressive stance against migration, against Latin America as a region as a whole, and also a military escalation in the Caribbean, this must be much more important. How are you living that situation? And what do you think is the role of media outlets or social organizations in that context from within the United States?
Yeah, so I think it's super important from within the United States for us ourselves to kill that misinformation, you know, not just saying like, oh, these people say this, but for us ourselves to say our narrative, because a lot of times the people who are suffering the consequences of the actions of our politicians are the people who don't get a voice. And so in this regard, I think independent journalism is super important in offering people a different narrative than they hear all the time.
One of the things that we've been discussing with different participants here in the festival, many coming from the US, has to do with how the people really feel about, for example, the military escalation in the Caribbean. We know that the US, the people in the US are fighting their own struggles in terms of the difficulties and economic and inflation in access to healthcare, for example. And it's really the possibility of forging that solidarity among the peoples to understand that there is a common cause with the peoples of Latin America. How are you dealing with that over there? What do you perceive with the people when you talk to them about Latin America, about Cuba, especially in LA, where there are so many migrants and also their sons and daughters? How do you feel that perception of a possible unity between the working class?
Well, I think the protest that we just had yesterday and all over the U.S. says a great deal of where people are standing. They see that our politicians are not for the people, they're for profit. And in that regard, once we also bring in the narrative Cuba and Venezuela, within our context, people start to question it, like, wow, our country just doesn't do that to other people, it does it to us. And these No King protests that have been happening monthly and growing each month, like with the ones yesterday being the big ones yet, Washington D.C. was covered for miles, you know. I think I think that speaks volume as how uncontent people are with the current situation. And when people are uncontent, they start to look for something different than what they always hear. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for committees like ours and independent journalists to come in and fill in those gaps, you know, and give people a different narrative and context where they can learn and then hopefully support us. And I actually want to bring up a campaign we're about to start from our committee when we come back on Tuesday. We're having a report back in Miami, and we're actually going to launch a campaign to pressure the Olympic Committee to give visas to Cuban athletes, to participate first in the pre-Olympics so then they can qualify for the Olympics. And I think something like that is really something international that brings some people together, because, you know, that's beyond politics. It's like even something cultural like sports is being affected by our legislations and our government, you know?
Exactly, and also points out to how the U.S. has been manipulating the visas in a political way. We've seen it in the UN with such a terrible effect of, for example, the Palestinian delegation not being able to voice their own experience at such an important time. Thank you so much, Brenda. We will continue to look for those campaigns, continue to spread the word and the solidarity and everything that you've been saying about, well, what people are discontent, they look for different alternatives, and we are here exchanging experiences in order to learn from each other. So thank you for being here with teleSUR English.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful connecting, and it's been a wonderful experience to connect internationally on how we can work together to break those narratives.
We'll definitely continue to do so. So a little bit of what is happening here. We've been saying this festival is about understanding and also continuing to question, continue to make up new answers to what journalism needs today in a context of geopolitical wars, in a context of aggression against our region, but also the great power that lies in solidarity, the great power that lies in just exchanging our experiences. This continues to happen here in Havana, Cuba. We'll be back for more now. We go back to studios.
Thank you, Belen, and to your guest for all her inputs and her moments here from the South. Well, like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. teleSUR,